In the name of kind Allah, hello and good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, super enthusiastic, and ready to get started with our tonight's outstanding webinar. Welcome, everyone. It's a great pleasure and profound gratitude that I welcome you all to the webinar on tips for effective communication and fluency in English language. Initially, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude and acknowledgement to Ms. Ruqayya, our presenter for tonight's webinar. I'm deeply grateful of her for dedicating her time and providing this incredible opportunity to hold and organize the event. Thank you so much, Ms. Ruqayya. As earlier mentioned in the group, Ms. Ruqayya is a native speaker, so I'm sure it is an incredible opportunity to learn strategies and techniques related to communication skills in English language from her. Now let's get started the session and let's dive into the agenda of the session. Firstly, we'll have a brief introduction to Afghanistan Open University organization. Then we'll invite Ms. Ruqayya to the stage for her presentation. After that, in the last 10 minutes, there will be a Q&A session where you'll get the opportunity to speak up and pose any questions or concerns you may have. Till that time, be patient and make sure to stay till the very end of the session. Now let's start the session with a brief introduction to AOUO. AOUO, which stands for Afghanistan Open University Organization. It is the first free tuition online organization offering free services for both girls and boys. This organization has been active for more than 2 years in providing free services through 4 sectors. The first service we provide is short courses. In this sector, we're offering short-term courses and different fields like foreign language classes and professional classes. And a good news that we've recently started 2 years program, including diploma in online businesses and trading, diploma in English language, and diploma in technology information. You can enhance and improve your skills with our 2 years program and get diploma upon completion. The second service we provide here, it is online webinars. Each week we host 3 to 4 online webinars providing beneficial information. The third service is Career Center and Scholarship Support, where we help students to apply on free scholarships. The last service is library support. We have 4 active libraries. Through these groups in libraries, we ensure students have access to different books within 10 minutes. All these services are available through different departments of AOUO. It was a brief introduction about AOUO. For more information, you can visit our official website. Now let's get started with the webinar and let's invite Ms. Ruqayya to the board. Before that, I would like to add one more thing, that we'll be issuing certificates for the participants of tonight's webinar. So make sure to stay till the very end of the session and don't miss this opportunity. Thank you all. Now the floor is yours, Ms. Ruqayya. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Ruqayya and I'm so excited to be here and sharing my knowledge of the English language with all of you today. I am an ancient history student at the University of Leicester, as well as an ESL instructor at this organization called Paper Airplanes. And let's get started. So first, let's overview the content of what we're going to learn today. So we're going to learn why it is important to learn the English language, how it became a lingua franca, and a little bit of history of the English language because I'm a history student and this had to be included. Different dialects, type of Englishes, and finally, tips on fluency for ESL learners. So a bit of background, I grew up in the UAE, specifically Dubai, and we had people from all around the world come in. We had people from Europe, from USA, from South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa. And the one thing we all had in common was we all spoke English. The one language we had in common was English. So English is referred to as a lingua franca. Now, what is a lingua franca, you may ask? A lingua franca is a common language or a bridge between people from different linguistic backgrounds or different native languages to communicate effectively. So let's say a person from China versus a person from Russia, both speaking completely different languages, Russian and Chinese. They will have one language in common, which is English. So English is that bridge between them, also known as a lingua franca. So now, why do we need to learn English? Why is it so important? Why is everyone learning English? Well, English now by today is spoken over by 1.5 billion people worldwide. It is the official or primary language in over 50 countries. It was also the language for international trade, business, technology, aviation, entertainment, and even friendships. So many of us have friends abroad who speak English, and we only speak English to them. And social media today as well. We need to know English to keep up with everyone and what's happening around the world. So let's dive in. So English comes from the Indo-European language family, specifically the Germanic branch. So we can say German is like the great grandma, and then English, French, Dutch, Swiss are all like cousins. So have you ever wondered where did English come from? How is it so important all of a sudden? Where did this language just come up from? I'm going to tell you exactly where it came from today. So we're going to go back into memory lane and see the history of the English language. So before English was even a language, in the UK, in England, we had the Celtic tribes. In around 200 BC, there were the Celtic tribes and they spoke Celtic. This was before English. And then after the Celtic tribes, we had the Roman occupation of England because of the Roman Empire. And this is where the Latin influence in English comes in. So English is divided into four parts: Old English, Middle English, Early Modern English, and Late Modern English. The English we speak today is called Contemporary Modern English. So after the Romans left, because the Roman Empire was falling, the Old English period starts, as you can see here, from 500 to 1100. This is where Germanic tribes, as we saw previously, English comes from the Germanic branch. Germanic tribes invaded England and pushed the original Celtic tribes towards the north, the places we know today as Scotland and Northern Ireland. However, the Old English is completely different from the English we speak today. It's like a whole nother language, so it doesn't really matter. We got one word from it, which is a werewolf, and that's about it. And now the Middle English period starts, which is 1100 to 1500. And guess what? England got invaded again. But this time, oh wait. Sorry, guys, I messed up. Middle English period, 1100 to 1500. Um, this is where the Vikings from Norway invaded England, and we had this language called Old Norse come in. So Old Norse is 1% of the English language today, approximately 2,000 words. From Old Norse, we got days of the week and words related to war and violence. So in the Middle English period, again, England got invaded, but this time by a French-speaking Viking called William the Conqueror. He was also the first king of England, fun fact. And over 7,000 English words come from French. This is also the reason why we have so many synonyms. So words like attorney and lawyer, which mean the same thing, but attorney is French and lawyer is Old English. Same with beef and cow. Beef is a French word and cow is like an Old English word. So if you ever wonder why two words mean the same thing, one of them is probably French. Now we get into the early modern English phase, which is 1500 to 1800. Thankfully, there were no invasions this time. But this is where the Renaissance mixing happened. So a lot of French, Greek, Italian words were included in the English language. And if you guys know Shakespeare, he was also alive during this time. Shakespeare from Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet. He made a lot of contribution to the English language. Some of the words he brought in are still used today in the English language, and he brought in a lot of Latin influence as well. During the early modern English phase, the great vowel shift also happened. If you're wondering why some words are written in a way and then pronounced different in English, such as the word knife, the K comes in. We blame it on the great vowel shift, where the rules for spellings and graphology were written down. And finally, we come into the late modern English stage. from 1800 to present, and this is where England invades everyone else, and the British Empire expands. So because the British Empire expanded, we got a lot of influence from countries like India, Africa, India and China. So we get pajamas and shampoos, the word from India, the word trek from Africa, and the word ketchup from China. So that's a brief history. Obviously, there's so much more into history, but we won't go into that deep. Um, so as we spoke before, as you saw how the English language kept on evolving from Old English to Middle English to early modern English and to what we speak now, contemporary modern English, the English language will keep on evolving continuously. Even today, when we see the influence of technology and social media, words like selfie didn't even exist 20 years ago are now part of the dictionary. Words like phrases like binge watch are being added to the dictionary every day. Googling was recently added to the Oxford Dictionary. So English keeps on evolving, doesn't stay the same. If someone from Old English woke up and heard our English, it would be completely different. And in probably 100 years, English is going to be a completely different language. So we need to be very active on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, which are basically shaping English today. So Gen Z terms like slay, vibe, and ghosting are becoming a part of everyday conversations. These terms are not even in the textbooks yet, but they are being used today. So one of the tips that I'm starting off with is stay active on social media, so that we can be so we can know what the latest trends are going on in English. Now, there are so many different dialects and varieties of the English language. There's so many different dialects within the UK itself. Example, Cockney. Cockney is spoken in East London. So Cockney is a completely different accent, and they have like a completely different way of speaking. Like words like apples and pears for stairs or dog and bone for phone are part of like the rich Cockney rhyming slang tradition, compared to what people consume as like the UK London accent, often seen as the standard British English accent, which is more often used in formal settings like the BBC. Even in the same city, like in London, people can sound very, very different, which reflects the cultural diversity that English has observed over time. And the most debated dialect and varieties of all time, American English versus British English. So if you cross the Atlantic from the UK, you'll encounter American English, which has its own set of vocabulary and spellings. For one of the biggest examples for the difference between American English and spelling and British English is the spelling of color without the U is used in American English. But in British English, the spelling color with the U is used, which is which can get very confusing at times. So in school, I went to a British school, so whenever I would use COLOR, I would always get scolded by my teachers because we were supposed to use COLOUR, even though both are correct. Just one is American, one is British. Also, words like apartment and flat. Apartment is American English and flat is British English. Words like lift and elevator. Elevator is American English, lift is British English. And then cookies and biscuits, chips and crisps, they mean the same thing, but just different dialects, American and British. Also, it's not just words, it's also the pronunciation of the same word. For instance, the word schedule is pronounced schedule in the US and schedule in the UK. And now we come to different forms of English around the world. So because of how the British Empire expanded, it evolved and it became a second language in countries such as India. So in India, they have their own version of English called Hinglish, which is a mixture of Hindi and English. For example, words like prepone, which is not there in like the normal British English. We have postpone, but we don't have prepone. Prepone is to bring something forward, and the word cousin brother, referring to male cousin, they reflect unique Indian influences. Similarly, in Singapore, Singlish has emerged, combining English with Malay, Chinese, and Tamil words. Singapore was also invaded by the British, so they also have like an English influence. So phrases like la, lo, or lay add flavor and emphasis to sentences. So now we go to the main part why we all are here for today. Common struggles of ESL learners and tips to overcome them. So um, I want to remind you all that learning English is a journey, and along the way, it is normal to face so many challenges. And today we'll focus on 6 common struggles that English learners face and provide simple solutions. Whether it's building confidence, expanding your vocabulary, improving pronunciation, tackling grammar, sharpening listening skills, or staying consistent. Let's go step by step each way. Yeah. So let's start with one of the biggest challenges. And being a native speaker, I go through that a lot too, the lack of confidence in speaking English. Many of us feel nervous, afraid of making mistakes, or worried about being judged. I feel so nervous right now speaking in front of so many people. I've never done this before, and I feel so nervous speaking in front of around 80 people. Um, but confidence doesn't come before practice. It comes from practice. The more you speak, the more natural you'll feel when you speak English. So at first, it's going to feel very awkward to speak English, but then it will come naturally and more fluently to all of you, I'm sure. So my first tip would be to start small talk. Talk to yourself in English. For example, throughout your day, whatever you're doing, describe what you're doing. If you're cooking, tell yourself, I'm cooking. Explain to yourself what you're cooking. If you're, let's say, making rice, what are you doing? I am making rice. I'm putting the water in the kettle and boiling the water. I'm putting the water in the pot. I'm putting rice in the pot. I'm putting salt in the pot. And then just talk to yourself about what you're doing, what you're thinking. Oh, what do I need to do today? What am I supposed, all my tasks for today? I need to do chores. I need to study. I need to do my homework. Just talk to yourself in English. And there's nobody listening, so there's going to be no pressure at all. Recording yourself is another great way to build confidence. You can choose like a simple topic, let's say your favorite movie, and you record yourself speaking about it for 1 minute, just 1 minute. So, and when after you record and when you listen back, you'll notice the areas you need to improve, but you'll also see how much you already know about the language. And then one of the biggest tips is use language exchange apps like HelloTalk or Tandem, where you can get in touch with native speakers who can help you with your speaking, and you can be more confident while speaking with a native speaker. Join speaking clubs. If you have a teacher, talk to your teacher who can correct you. And remember, mistakes are part of learning, and fluency grows with practice. Um, Now let's talk about vocabulary. One of the most frustrating things is knowing what you want to say but not having the right words. And expanding your vocabulary is like unlocking new tools, and you'll be able to express yourself more clearly and effectively. I know so many of my students struggle with this, with limited vocabulary. They always tell me that how they want to have like deep conversations with people, but they can't because they don't have the vocabulary for it. So one of the best ways to learn vocabulary is to focus on themes. Example, let's say if you're learning travel vocabulary, get 5 to 10 words related to travel, such as passport, luggage, itinerary, planes, airport. Note down all of those words and try making sentences with them. Group them start making sentences, write paragraphs on whatever topic you like. It could be anything, it could be food, it could be, as I said, traveling, it could be fashion, anything you like, but that helps a lot. Um, and another tip is reading. Reading is the best way to learn, to expanding your vocabulary. It's the best way. Even in school, even though we were already, we all went to English school, our teachers always used to tell us read, 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 because it would help so much with vocabulary. Um, so what you do is you get a book. It could be any book of your choice. A lot of people like to read, start with Colleen Hoover. She's an author and her books are amazing. You start reading, you note down all the new words in like a journal, and then you start making sentences with or use words throughout your day. For example, if you read a sentence like, the weather is pleasant today, you learn not just the word pleasant, but also how to use it in a sentence. And as I said, keep a vocabulary journal. Whenever you see a new word, write it down, and along with a sentence, review it regularly and try to use the word in conversations or writing. Apps like Quizlet or Anki are also amazing for reviewing words with flashcards. They're especially helpful for reviewing words over time so you don't forget them. And engage with real life English content like books, movies, or podcasts. Podcasts are an amazing way. I love listening to podcasts. I always keep them on the background while I'm doing something, and you can hear native speakers talk, and it can also help with your conversation skills when you hear two people talk, as well as how to form an accent. So I have a list of podcast suggestions for you guys that you can listen to that really I enjoy and that help a lot with English. So if you're interested in psychology, you can listen to the Jay Shetty podcast or Dr. Gabor Mate. A murder mystery could be the Rotten Mango podcast. Casual conversations could be Emma Chamberlain. Food could be Off Menu. Comedy could be Smartless. And for celebs, you can listen to Call Her Daddy podcast. You can screenshot it. These are amazing podcasts, and you can listen to native speakers speak and have conversations. And then these are some book suggestions that I suggest you guys read. For beginners, complete beginners, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, and Bliff, Chip and Kipper by Oxford Reading. Bliff, Chip and Kipper are the books that they give to students in British schools as well, for their vocabulary. If you think you're more than a beginner, you can start reading Harry Potter, and as I mentioned, books by Colleen Hoover. Specifically, It Ends With Us. And if you are an advanced reader, you can read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Next, let's talk about pronunciation. English pronunciation can be tricky because it's not always logical. Words are often spelled one way but pronounced another, as we spoke, because of the great vowel shift that happened. And this confuses a lot of learners, but with practice, you can easily master it. One of the most effective technique is called shadowing. You listen to a native speaker. This could be from a podcast, movie, or even a YouTube video, and repeat exactly what they say. Try to mimic their tone and rhythm. For example, if they say, "How is it going?" you pause and repeat exactly, "How is it going?" Another tip is to focus on the sounds that are difficult for you. I know a lot of ESL learners that struggle with the TH sound. So words like think and through are hard for many learners because they're essentially the same thing, but they sound very different. So for TH, you can practice saying thank you or this is Thursday, so you can see the difference between the different THs. Apps like Elsa Speak are also good for practicing pronunciation. They compare your speech to native speakers and show you how to improve. Pronunciation tools like Forvo or Google's pronunciation feature are also really great. And breaking words into syllables and practicing the sounds slowly. So in schools, and especially in kindergarten, when we want kids to learn, we break like a huge word. Suppose, let's say, the day of the week, Wednesday. We teach them by saying wed. What is wed? Wed is wedding. Nest day. Wednesday. You break the word into syllables and practice the sound slowly, so it just comes naturally. And practicing tongue twisters to improve fluency. So some of the tongue twisters, I have them here. I've listed them down for you. You start with reading tongue twisters slowly, and then you increase your speed. So first you would be like, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And then you would increase your speed, like how much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And practicing tongue twisters can help with your fluency. There are many more, such as Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper, a pick of pickled pepper. Peter Piper picked. The Betty one is very popular. A lot of people use it. Betty bought some butter, but she said the butter is bitter. If I put in my butter, it will make my butter bitter. And then I have a list of cartoons and TV shows, movies, YouTubers, my suggestions that you could watch that would help you guys with your of English language journey. So cartoons are very helpful because they emphasize on pronunciation. Like Dora the Explorer, she'll ask you questions and you'll have to repeat after her. So that's going to help you guys a lot. Peppa Pig, Simpsons, Bluey. It's a good way to start your English language journey if you aren't sure about your pronunciation. Then TV shows such as Friends. So many people have learned English while watching Friends. You open the subtitles and you try to understand what they're saying. So Friends, The Office, Stranger Things, Suits, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, movies such as Paddington, Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, Home Alone, and YouTubers are very fun to watch as well. So Sidemen, Ryan Trahan, The Try Guys, Mr. Beast, Jubilee, all amazing suggestions that could help you guys. Let's see some of the grammar challenges now. So English grammar can feel overwhelming because there's so many rules and exceptions to those rules as well. But here's the good news. You don't need to know every grammar rule to communicate effectively. Trust me, it just comes out naturally. And you'll even realize that, okay, this is wrong without even knowing what the rule is at times. So you should start by mastering the basics. Focus on like simple sentences, as I mentioned previously, like, oh, I eat breakfast. She is happy. Whenever you notice something, tell your mind to try to say it in English. If you see the weather, oh, the weather is pleasant today, it's going to rain soon. Start with small sentences, and then you can go on and focus on common tenses like the past, present, and future. Let's say right now, for example, what are you doing right now? I am attending a webinar, present. I attended a webinar, past. I'm going to attend a webinar, the future. And if you're still unsure about grammar, you can always use tools like Grammarly. They correct your mistakes and explain why something is going wrong. And then you can use many online resources like Khan Academy or YouTube grammar tutorials for clear explanations. So podcasts like ESL Pod, All Years English, Luke's English Podcast, all focus on grammar and they're amazing to help out. And don't overthink when you speak, because fluency will obviously follow with practice. Now, listening. Listening is one of the most important skills because it helps you understand how native speakers actually talk. But it can be difficult, especially when people speak quickly or use unfamiliar accent. I'm not sure if I'm speaking quickly or if it is hard for you guys to understand what I'm saying. But a lot of you guys struggle with accents, speeds, and unfamiliar vocabulary that makes it hard to understand spoken English. So again, start by watching videos with subtitles in English. As I mentioned, shows like Friends are amazing because the conversations are so casual and funny and it helps with everyday English. Um, Listen to slow paced podcasts like The English We Speak by BBC. Um, and when listening, don't try to catch every word. Focus on the general meaning first, then replay the clip to catch specific words or phrases. Songs are another a great tool. People enjoy songs, they hum, they listen to it while doing practically everything. So songs like Ed Sheeran's Perfect, you can sing to it and practice listening and pronunciation at the same time. And keep on replaying the audio so you can train your ear to different accents. I know the British accent is specifically very hard to understand at times, and they're very quick as well. Some of my audiobook suggestions that if you want to work out your listening comprehension and listening skills are The Little Prince, Matilda by Roald Dahl, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And finally, we come to lack of consistency in practice. So one of the biggest obstacles to progress is inconsistency. You might study hard for a week and then stop, which slows down your learning. Consistency is the key. So I want you guys all to set like a daily routine for practicing English, even if it's just like 15 minutes. For example, watch like a short video, write a few sentences in your journal, and practice speaking about it every day. Apps like Duolingo or Memrise are great for staying consistent because they make learning fun and interactive. Um, and then find a language buddy or accountability partner to keep you motivated. Apps like Reddit have a language exchange groups that you can interact with people from different parts of the world and they help you learn their language, which is good to make friends as well as learn a new language. So after you guys are done with English, maybe you can start learning a new one as well. Um, and now, last but not least, we have our homework. Since I gave you guys so many recommendations, I want you to listen to at least a short clip of a podcast or even the whole podcast or a TV show or any video in English and pause after each sentence and repeat it exactly as you hear it, mimicking the pronunciation and tone. And use subtitles if you need help. And then write down 3 sentences you heard, 2 new words you learned, and one thing you liked about the video. And that's it, guys. Thank you for listening to me. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ruqaya. It was an amazing session and the most important information you mentioned. And now let's give the chance to the participants, those who have any question. It is time for the Q&A session. If you have any question, just raise your hand, then we'll call your name, and then you can ask your question. So let me check who have raised their hands. Okay, first of all, Shahidullah, I will open your mic, then you can ask your question. Let me find your name. Yes, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Shahidullah Yusuf Zaid. Shahidullah Yusuf Zaid, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask.
السلام علیکم ستړي مشي ساتم ښه دی قلاري ده زه به پښتو کې لږ شان پوښتنه وکړم ځکه چې په انګلیسي باندې ډېر نه پوهېږم کو تاسو پښتو باندې به انشاءالله پوهېږئ
Yes, I know.
زما پوښتنه څه ده دغه کلاس چې شروع کېږي دغه 7 بجو نه تر 8 بجو پورې تاسو ویلې چې دی که نه دې کې دا کوم پروګرامونه چې دي ما کو دا داسې 9:30 نه تر 8:30 پورې شي دغه ټایم به څنګه وي دغه غوښتنه مې وکړو تاسې منظور کړئ ځان سره
Sorry, if you have any question relevant to tonight's webinar, tonight's content, you can ask. I think you are talking about classes. You can reach out to the admins and they will solve your question. So guys, if you have any question relevant to the content which was shared or you have any comment, you can raise your hand and ask. Otherwise, just for those who have any question relevant to tonight's agenda and contents which was shared. Now let me give the chance to Waliullah Fogioni. I will give you access to the microphone and then you can ask your question. Just give me a second to find your name. Yes, now you can ask your question. Waliullah, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Mr. Waliullah, do you have my voice? If you have any question, you can unmute yourself. Okay, seems he has connection problem. And now let's give the chance to Miss Farida. Miss Farida, I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Okay, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question, Miss Farida.
Okay, first of all, hello. Hope you're all doing well. My question was related to today's webinar certificate. We will have certificate or not? If we have, when we can achieve that?
Yes, we'll be, as earlier mentioned, we'll be issuing certificates for the participants of tonight's session, but there will be some criteria that you should do. The first one is you have to submit your assignment. All information will be shared in the group. If you have joined from the WhatsApp group, on that group, all information will be shared.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I joined from WhatsApp group.
Okay, that's great. And now let's give the chance to Mr. Abidullah. I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. You can ask your question, Mr. Abidullah. Mr. Abdullah, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask. Okay, seems he has connection problem. Let's move on to the next person. Mr. Delwat, I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. And now you can unmute yourself, Mr. Delwat, and ask your question.
Commencing with the name of Allah, the most merciful and most gracious. Hope every one of you, all members of today's seminary, are be doing well. Yes, that is the great moment for me to ask from viewers and from as well as from viewers, friend Rikia, as well as you. There are two questions that I have, and I have found from today's seminar. The first one is that the limited vocabulary, which is the most biggest problem, especially for me, that I don't know where should I use the perfect words or a perfect vocabulary for the certain places. That is the biggest problem for me, and I don't know which word will be the perfect if I use here or there. My question is that if this is a big problem, if I use a wrong word, or should I improve my vocabulary, or things like that. That is the first question, and the second question is that as the accent is important in the communication as well as in speaking, because there are two accents like the British and American, but I don't know, and I can say I wonder about that. Which accent should I use?
Okay, to answer your first question about limited vocabulary, yes, words can be used in a lot of different contexts, and finding the perfect word can be hard if you have limited vocabulary. That's why I suggested you guys to start reading and then listen to podcasts so you can understand how native speakers speak and how they communicate and what words are used in what context, because unless and until you hear someone speak, you will never be able to understand it. So my recommendation again would be listen to podcasts, read books. And the second question about accents, accents come naturally from where you're based, your ethnicity, it depends on that, because uh, it usually just varies between from people to people. There's no specific accent that you're supposed to follow. It just comes naturally, to be honest. So, but if you would like to use the British accent, or if you like the sound of it, you can for sure use it. Or if you think the American accent is way easier, you can do that as well. But there is no specific ruling for accents.
Yes, thank you for your response. But here, I'm wondering about that. Most of the time that I'm trying to know about that, the most worldly or the most famous exams like TOEFL, Alex, or Duolingo. Which accent is better for that if I follow to these specifically for these exams?
For IELTS, or I think you just need to be clear. To be honest, your English just needs to be clear. But the American accent is widely used. The British accent is known, but I think you need to be clear with your words first for IELTS or any of those exams. But yeah, I think the American accent would do that for you because it is very clear.
Thank you so much. That was all about my questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you so much for answering, Ms. Ruqayya. Now let's give the chance to the other participants. Mr. Wahid, I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Just give me a second to find your name. Yes, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello everyone. Good evening, everyone. I hope are you well. I have a question. Are all your lesson taught in English, or do you also translate them into Persian? And another question is do you consider everyone level at this time when you teach, or do you teach in general? Your teaching is excellent. There's no problem. I hope everyone registers so that we can start a lesson as soon as possible. Thanks.
Sorry, I think you are talking about teaching classes. Actually, it is not a teaching class. It is an online webinar for the English learners, and it was in English language. So if you have any question relevant to the webinar, to the contents which was shared tonight, you can ask your question. Now let's give the chance to Mr. Said Hassib Sadar. I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Yes, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are fine and doing well. I have three questions. First, all the native speaker advise us to when you watch a series or movie, then please don't watch their subtitles. But when Miss Ruqya told us that if you want to watch movie, you have to open the subtitle. And the second question is we have two famous accent. One is American and the second one is British. Which one she recommend for us? Which one is a very famous and easy accent that we can learn? And the third question, sorry for my question is very long. The third question is I learned English a lot in Afghanistan in a different institutes, such as a modern institutes to like a Muslim, which is very famous in Afghanistan. I finished that and I have a lots of diploma, but still I can't learn English. When I watch movie, it was very going very boring for me because I didn't catch all their sounds and their speeds. But when we speak in the group, I catch all the speech of Miss Ruqya. I don't know what's the problem with me. When I watch the movie, I can't catch their sound. And what's their suggestion for me? Thank you very much.
Okay, so for your first question, to answer that, I suggest that people watch movies with subtitles because if you're a complete beginner, it's going to be impossible for you to understand anything that's going on in a movie without looking at subtitles. But if you think you're good at English and your English is great and is advanced, for sure you can look at movies without subtitles. But if you're a complete beginner and like, let's say if the movie is like in a British accent, it would be very hard to understand. So that's why I recommend that people put on subtitles to understand what's going on. And also, people, native speakers tend to speak very quickly. So it's easier with subtitles that you can read what they're talking about as well. For your second question about accents, yeah, the American and British accents are the most popular ones. Yes, the British one is a little bit hard for others to understand. The American one is more clear, and people can understand it much better. So I would recommend you do the American accent. Learn the American accent because the words are very clear, and the British accent is like a completely different. Some people say it's like a completely different language, and it's very hard to understand at times. So my recommendation is the American accent. And for your third question, it could be that you might be watching a movie in a different accent, and maybe they're going too fast for you not to understand. Um, I'm not really sure what kind of movies you watch, so it could depend on that. Yeah.
Thank you for the response and hope you got your answer, Mr. Said Hassib Sadat. Now let's give the chance to Miss Nigina Sadaqi. I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Okay. Miss Nigina, now you can ask your question.
Hello to everyone. First, my apologize that I come late to class, and I ask about the slides that I come late in all the slides. I think um, I left the it passed for me. So can you share the slides in WhatsApp group or Telegram group?
Sure, I will forward it after the session to the group.
Thanks a lot.
Most welcome. So now let's give the chance to Miss Al-Muqaddas. I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Yes, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Miss Muqaddas. Miss Muqaddas, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. I gave you access to the microphone. Do you have my voice, Miss Muqaddas? Okay, seems she has connection problem. Now let's give the chance to Mr. Kamran. I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Yes, now you can unmute yourself, Mr. Kamran. Mr. Kamran Mashal, if you have any question, you have access to the microphone. Just click on it and then ask your question. Mr. Kamran, do you have my voice? All right, I think he has connection problem as well. Let's give the chance to the last participant, Mr. Nurani Nuri. I will give you access to the microphone and you can ask your question. Yeah, now you can unmute yourself, Mr. Nurani.
Okay, thank you very much. Greetings and hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak, and a special thanks to Ms. Ruqayya Isaqalana for participating and also presenting this webinar for us. We have actually learned the important things about English, the history of English, and also importance of it. and dialects as well, and struggles and difficulties alongside their solutions. At first, I want to say this is Nurani Nuri, Afghanistan Open University IELTS preparation student. And my question is this, that most people, as I see, when a native speaker asks a question from them, they actually start translating everything in their native language. And instead of just thinking in English, they translate everything in their own native language, and then they organize everything in English, and they speak. This is a huge problem for all, actually for mostly for ASL learners. So I wanted to ask Ms. Alana, that is there any solution, any tips and tricks in her mind about this problem? Thank you.
Okay, so regarding this question, I don't think there is any specific tip that comes in mind, because this is just how your mind functions. That obviously the language you grew up speaking and that you're native in and you're fluent in, and the language that you're learning, you have to translate everything in your head. So unless and until you get completely fluent in English, you have to keep translating everything in your head. For example, I like to learn new languages, and I'm learning Arabic currently, and I have to translate everything in my head from English to Arabic, and it will just go away when you're completely fluent in the language. So no, it's not going to go away anytime soon. It will take a lot of time for you to like get completely fluent and think in English. Yeah, a tip would be try thinking in English and not in your native language. I hope that would work.
Thank you very much. So one thing else, most people say that beside, I'm speaking about some learners that they are in intermediate or advanced level, someone who are actually looking forward to take IELTS or maybe TOEFL or Duolingo tests. So I'm speaking about these people. Most people say besides learning and expanding vocabulary as well and word power, you have to learn some expressions and collocations. What do you think about that? Is that helpful actually?
Oh, yes, that's very, very helpful. Learning slang and the new terms, as I mentioned, Gen Z slang, Gen Z term expressions, that is very important to learn. But I feel like with social media nowadays, that TikTok, it's very easy to learn those expressions and those slangs. And when you watch videos of native speakers on social media, it just comes. It's very easy, and I think it's very important to learn that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your dedications, your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, and thank you, Ms. Ruqayya, for answering. Now I think all of the questions were answered. It is time to end the session. I would like to thank you all for joining in today's webinar. I truly appreciate your presence and active participation. I hope you found the tips and insights shared helpful. And a special thanks to Ms. Ruqayya for hosting the session and providing this incredible opportunity for all of us. Thank you all. And
Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
thank you so much. Okay, just before ending the session, I would like to indicate that all information relevant to the certificates will be shared in the group, and I shared a link to the classes as I shared at the first that we have started 2 years program. You can join in our 2 years program. You can access to the group to the link which was shared in the chat box. Thank you all. I hope you found the tips and insights shared helpful. It was all about our tonight's outstanding webinar. Thank you and have a great night.